Identical twins of Reddit. What's the greatest thing you've achieved by swapping places without anyone noticing? My twin brother and I went to different colleges and didn't generally reveal to the friends we made that we each had a twin. One day, a group of people approached me in the street calling me by my brother's name and asking me if I would like to join them in the pub. I knew that my twin brother was already at the pub, so I said I'd bet them free drinks if I beat them to the pub in a foot race, even if I gave them a head start. They agreed and ran off at top speed while I stood there casually checking my watch and buffing my fingernails on my lapel, only for them to arrive exhausted and find me standing at the bar, drink already in hand. I know it's not exactly an achievement, but it was a fun twin moment. My dad has an identical twin brother. This is his famous story. My family is Iranian, and it is mandatory for young men to serve in the army for a minimum of 2 years. They do have few exceptions. For example, if your eyes are very weak and you can't see without glasses, then you don't have to serve. My dad had the weaker eyes between the two of them, so he failed his own exam. He took his brother's ID to the army offices and failed the exam again to get his brother out of that responsibility. My twin brother and I go to different colleges. I knew he was coming up to visit a couple weeks after college started, so I didn't tell any of my new friends I had a twin and didn't friend anyone on social media or anything. When he came up to visit, he came right to my room and we switched for about an hour. It was great. He said he had an in-depth conversation about the fantasy football league I was in, just using cues he found in the conversation. Nobody had any idea. Want to really mess with a group of people? Pull a good twin switch. The reveal was awesome. He was having dinner in the dining hall with my friends. I sat down at a nearby table. The looks of disbelief on people's faces were unbelievable. This one guy looked at him, looked at me, looked at him, looked at me, speechless. God, I love being a twin. I think the funniest twin switch that happened to me was when I visited my sister's house. We're sisters, probably identical, with slight visual differences and nearly identical voices and mannerisms. She's got 4 cats, 3 of which are kittens from the same litter. They're all varying levels of people shy because they're used to only being around her, but most of them like me too. She has one cat, Moby, who is the shyest. But I was hanging out at her house all day on the couch, and he managed to come out of hiding and socialize a bit. When she's alone, she usually watches movies on the couch with a blanket, but that day, while we watched a movie, I sat on her couch with the blanket and she sat on the love seat. While we were watching, Moby jumped up on the couch and snuggled in on my blanketed legs and dozed off. Aw. He stayed there for about an hour. Anyway, the movie ended and we were chatting and Moby stayed chilled out on my legs. I said something funny and my sister laughed. Moby heard her laugh and looked in her direction, saw her sitting on the love seat, and did a classic double take. You could just see his cat thought balloon saying, "Wait, if she's over there, whose legs am I sitting on?" He jumped up super fast and stared directly into my face with this horrified, confused cat expression. "Who are you?" Then he ran off and hid under the dryer, all traumatized by his accidental snuggling with the wrong twin. It took a long time before he stopped running off when he heard me. Great question. I posted this once before when this came up last. My twin brother was president of the class and I was vice president our junior year. When it came time for after-school re-election speeches for senior year, my brother completely forgot and walked home. I did my speech for vice president, then borrowed a friend's shirt and made up a presidential speech for him on the spot. We won both. Thanks for all the questions. Here are pics from our HS yearbook to prove it. Not identical twins, but we still get mixed up a lot. Anyway, I showed up to my brother's class to do a presentation. I'm a convincing speaker, and he said he'd give me a hamburger. Teacher never found out? I love hamburgers. In college, emailed my professor I would be missing a 3-hour night class because of the flu, Halloween parties. I walked across campus halfway through the class thinking it was clear. Nope, the professor lets the class out early for Halloween campus events, and he sees me walking to said parties. Afterward, he emails me calling me out for skipping class. Mind you, this was the best professor I had in college, and I had to take more classes from him with my major later on. So I rolled the dice and told him that I was home all night and he must have seen my twin brother on campus. I told him I thought he knew I had a twin who was a different major by now because of previous classes. Then I provided him with a link to the track and field roster website to prove I had a twin who looked like me. Next week in class, he apologizes to the entire class about how he effed up and wrongly called me out for skipping. They're not twins, but my dad and uncle look similar and have a very similar sounding voice. When my uncle was visiting, they decided to go skiing on handicapped ski day since my uncle has a lot of handicapped friends who are into extreme sports. My dad was standing around at the bottom of the mountain when he ran into a group of my uncle's friends and they all got very confused. Half of the group thought that he had recently been through some kind of miracle, while the other half thought he had been lying to them for the last 20 years. 5 minutes later, my uncle rolls up in his wheelchair. I have twin brothers. When they were about 12 or 13, my brother Gio was grounded from the computer. My mom was out, so he decided to sneak on. He was wearing headphones, so he didn't hear when she came in. She caught him. He pretended to be his twin, Dante. My mom doubted herself, called for Gio. Dante, having heard everything, responded, trying to help his brother out. My mom was confused for a bit, but being a mom, figured it out. They both got grounded, but she admitted she was very close to falling for it. I taught swimming lessons for 3 years. During that time, I had one set of twins in one of my classes, who once switched swimming suits to mess with me, except I was still learning names of the kids in class, 50 to 60 kids' names to learn from all my classes, and called one of them what could have been the wrong name, except it was right because they had also switched. His face adopted a surprised expression and he exclaimed, "How did you know we switched?" Because I'm that good. Not my story, but here's the TLDR of the best one I ever heard. My best friend had twin brothers. They were about 27 at the time. Brother A gets dumped bad. Brother B feels terrible, so he and friends take Brother A out to get crap nozzled. Brother A was terribly shy and not great with the ladies, hence why he got dumped by a sea hag with ambiguous morality. Brother B is gregarious and charming and also very committed to his long-term gal. Brother A spends the majority of the evening drowning his sorrows in tequila shots while Brother B spends his laying down some serious groundwork on a babe in the bar. Cue closing time. Brother B escorts lady outside and hails a cab, runs inside to grab his coat, and quickly changes shirts with Brother A. As he walks into the cab, he is furiously mumbling trivia in bullet points as fast as possible. Deanna, 24, psych major, 3 cats, loves skiing, 1 sister, etc. That's a good brother. Not exactly intentional, but I was visiting my brother's college campus where he lived in the dorm. I parked and he was headed in when a pair of female hands covered my eyes from behind. I turned around and saw a pretty blonde girl to whom I only had a chance to say hi before she threw her arms around my neck and kissed me. She then said, "Is your brother here yet? I can't wait to meet him." To which I replied, "I think you just did." She looked confused for a couple seconds and then turned bright red. When we both got inside, she beat my bro's arm for a solid 5 minutes. Apparently, he had never told her we were twins, since they had only gone out for a few weeks at the time. They eventually got married, but the way she and I met gets brought up just about every family gathering. Usually I just lurk on Reddit, but this caught my eye, so I made an account to share my story. My identical twin brother wasn't the most dedicated student in high school, while I was focused on getting into the college of my dreams, USC. He would often skip class to go hang out with his friends and do things that I didn't find to be quite beneficial to my goal of success. Well, his ditching habits got out of hand. It was in the 2nd month of senior year of high school, and his zero-period English teacher told him that he had 14 absences, and that if he missed one more zero-period class, he would drop-fail the class and would not be able to graduate. This really threw my brother's life into gear, and he began to come to school early and put his life back together. One day, it was 5 minutes before zero period had started, and I got a call from my bro. His car broke down and he was stuck 2 miles away from school. He had been trying to fix it for the past 10 minutes and couldn't figure out what happened. I sensed the urgency in his voice and knew he wasn't BSing me. I agreed to take his place and miss my ceramics zero period and take his English class. The only issue was that his class was on the other side of the school. By the time I went to his locker, grabbed his books, and ran to his class, I was about a minute late. I rushed in and saw the teacher give a sigh of relief when he saw me. So basically, I saved my brother from not graduating. No one noticed that it wasn't him and it was me, but I do remember this one girl coming up to me at lunch and asking why I changed clothes. Later found out she was in the zero period class. Hope you enjoyed my story, my first post on Reddit. My brother and I went to the same college. On one occasion, we both went to the library. I was studying, he was meeting a classmate for a project. She ran into me instead, and I pretended to be my brother. When I got out, I went looking for him, but couldn't find him, so I took off my jacket and came back to the girl. I introduced myself and explained that my brother was her classmate and I was looking for him. She said he had just left. I walked away, put the jacket on, and came back. She said my brother was looking for me. I kept leaving and coming back several times until eventually my brother finally arrived. When she saw him wearing something totally different than what I had worn with or without the jacket, she freaked out and yelled, "There are 3 of you?" Got quite a few of these. In high school, I made a bet with my AP physics teacher that we could switch classes on him and he wouldn't notice. He agreed and said he'd give an A on the final if we did. We switched on the day of the final, and I had him give the Scantron with the bubbles saying his name, not mine. To prep for this, I walked into class every day acting confused so to throw him off my trail. Also, rather recently, my brother got free drinks at my wedding from the bar because they were saying, "The groom drinks free." So he was scoring free mixed drinks all night. A professor at my school is a twin. He got his brother to impersonate him and deliver a lecture on comedy of errors. Then the actual professor comes in and proceeds to argue about who should be delivering the lecture. Shakespearean hilarity ensues. Not technically swapping places, but this is the greatest twin story for me besides the normal class switcheroos and whatnot. When my brother and I were about 2 years old, we went to get our passport pictures taken. My brother went first and he got his picture taken normally, but for some reason, I was being a little bee that day and I got to the point where I was screaming to my parents that I did not want my picture taken. They were not ready to put up with another minute of my nonsense, so they got me and my brother and they switched our shirts without the cameraman noticing. So, in my place, my brother took the picture with my shirt without anyone ever finding out that he was in both pictures. To this day, I still mess with other people to try to guess which twin is which in those 2 pictures. Not me, but my dad and uncle are twins. Just a few years ago, my dad fell off a ladder removing Christmas lights and broke his shoulder. After surgery, Dad had to go to physical therapy for a while. A few months in, my uncle comes up from out of town for some reason I can't remember, and Dad hatches a plan to be miraculously healed. He tells my uncle all the names of his receptionists and therapists. He wanted me to go in and film it, but I was afraid it would ruin the joke. So I'm told that my uncle goes in and starts going through stretches while the therapist looks amazed. She says, "My word, I've never seen such quick improvement. I never thought you would be able to lift your arms over your head again. What changed since last session?" My dad's family are a bunch of wise butts, so my uncle starts telling the therapist about hearing of a home remedy by rubbing ostrich oil on his shoulder. Meanwhile, my dad goes up to the receptionist for his appointment and apologizes for being late. The lady just looks confused and says, "But you already came in." My dad just looks confused back at her as she takes him to his room. I was told that the therapist gasped and took a triple take when she saw them both. Another shorter story is when my dad tried to withdraw $50 from my uncle's bank account. My uncle owns a small business and goes into the bank daily, so the teller recognized my dad. He goes up and asks for $50 from his account, and the teller just gives it to him. This was a while ago, before security was all the rage. He gives the money back and tells about him being a twin. The teller looked really embarrassed and was probably worried about his job. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.